This is the story of an Israeli spy so daring that he infiltrates the highest levels of the Syrian military. He memorizes the locations of secret Syrian gun emplacements on the Golan Heights, overlooking Israel. He boldly transmits his vital information to Israel from this apartment in Damascus, across the street from Syrian military headquarters. June 5th, 1967. The Six-Day War erupts. Israel launches a preemptive strike and silences the guns of the Golan, pinpointed by the Israeli spy. And finally, out of the spy, Eli Cohen, undercover in Damascus. He joins his relatives in Israel. Cohen quits a dull desk job translating Arabic newspapers and magazines. He requests a more challenging assignment to Israeli intelligence. The psychological profile of the Israeli intelligence expert. Disappointed, he goes back. The Golan Heights, a mighty fortress created by the hand of nature. Since biblical times, a barrier between Arab and Jew. Strategically vital to whoever controls its rugged hills. Young Israeli tourists now visit this beautiful, brooding, and somber place that once posed a deadly threat to the people of Israel. Israeli military intelligence.
Today we can see how important it is up here. And we can see these observation posts and realize that they could see everything. That is why the Golan is so important for Israel and the settlements.
From the Golan Heights, the guns of Syria fired on Israeli settlers who worked in the valley below. Spies who could pass as Arabs. For nearly 20 years, in the late 1940s, the farmers of the Israeli kibbutzim had to scratch a living from the soil while facing the threat of the Syrian guns. Families often spent days and nights as bomb shelters. For this brief moment in history, after a millennium of conflict, the Golan is in Israeli hands. The threat has been removed, for now. Security comes through the barrel of a gun, and the cunning of Israeli intelligence of the Islamic religion.
The struggle for the Golan Heights went swiftly and well and smoothly, thanks to a man by the name of Eli Cohen, who had been planted in Syria a long time before, and who acted as an Israeli spy.
Eli Cohen's parents were Syrian Jews who moved to Alexandria, Egypt. He was a loner, devout student with a phenomenal memory, an ear for languages, and an interest in everything, science and weapons to photography. Eli Cohen had all the makings of an ideal spy. As a student, Cohen becomes involved with the underground smuggling of Jews from Egypt to Israel, including his own family. He attends university in Cairo, but increasing anti-Jewish fervor forces him out of school and finally out of Egypt. And he learns the trade craft of He joins his relatives in Israel. In Cohen's own hand are instructions he receives. Cohen quits a dull desk job translating Arabic newspapers and magazines for the Ministry of Defense. He requests a more challenging assignment of Israeli intelligence. His psychological profile prepared here at Israeli intelligence headquarters warns of potential trouble signs. Despite his photographic memory and willingness to die for Israel, he is at conflict with himself. Driven by a powerful sense of self-importance, he is impulsive, too eager to take risks. The request is denied. He even learns to speak Arabic with a Syrian accent. Disappointed, he goes back to school, becomes a successful businessman, and marries Nadia Magli. And then he is told he must learn everything. They set up housekeeping in an apartment in Bat Yam, just outside Tel Aviv. It is part of his elaborate... It's life in a suburban housing development. Standard, conventional, even a little boring. Penetration, but Hamas, military intelligence, innate talent is too good to pass up.
March 1st, 1960.
In 1960, Eli Cohen is offered a dangerous assignment.
Eli Cohen arrives in Buenos Aires with a new identity. His name, Sabet.
Military intelligence is looking for spies who can go undercover. Spies who can pass as Arabs.
Together for coffee and death.
Israel is a small nation, a constant threat. Information is power.
The credible story that he was a Syrian importer-exporter.
Cohen, with his Syrian heritage, his past life in Egypt, and his fluency in Arabic is made to order.
An up-and-coming leader of Syria's Ba'ath Party.
He begins his intelligence training.
When Cohen tells him that he will soon
In the streets of Damascus, he learns how to shadow suspects and how to elude those who might be shadowed.
Society. Cohen's cover rules everything. January 1962. Cohen arrives in Damascus and rents an apartment directly across the street.
He is immersed in Arabic culture and the elaborate rituals of the Islamic religion,
and report what he sees and hears back to Israel via radio.
In this very mosque, he memorizes prayers and the passages from the Quran that all devout Muslims must know.
Gave him easy access to Syria's elite. They do not suspect that hidden in his apartment are the tools that help make Eli Cohen, alias Kamel Tabet, a master spy. Disguised in the bottom of an electric mixer is his secret radio.
He wanders the Arab bazaars that still exist in Israel, testing his new identity. His cover is to be that of a businessman, specializing in the export of brass and copper and selling furniture to buyers in Europe. He must know his products well.
An innocent-looking aspirin are actually deadly poison. To kill himself, if necessary.
And he learns the trade craft of espionage. Here in Cohen's own hand are instructions he receives on how to develop microfilms.
Complicated ideas. Cohen carefully cultivates friends in the Syrian military.
Cohen's superiors have determined that his assignment will be Syria.
Up on joyrides and airplanes and gliders.
Syria has been a vocal enemy, and its bombardment of Israel from the Golan Heights has made life a torment for those who live in fatal range. Cohen learns everything he can about Syrian society and politics. He even learns to speak Arabic with a Syrian accent.
His friends proudly show off every hidden artillery emplacement.
And then he is told he must learn everything about a different place, Buenos Aires, Argentina.
The location of every
Why? It is part of his elaborate cover.
Cohen doesn't need to
Argentina has a large Syrian community. Cohen's career as a deep penetration agent is now
abandoned in the Syrian hotel in the Golan. Cohen partied with his officer friends and listened carefully as they carelessly
March 1st, 1961, alone and carrying a forged Argentinian passport. Eli Cohen arrives in Buenos Aires with a new identity. His name, Kamel Tabet.
Men talked about the size and disposition of the Syrian army.
He takes an apartment on Tankouari Street, begins to frequent cafes where Syrians come together for coffee and breakfast. At places like the Café La Paz and La Casa Árabe, he curries the friendship of the most prominent Syrians, building the credible story that he is a Syrian importer-exporter whose business frequently takes him to Europe. One of those he meets is the Syrian embassy's military attaché, Amin al-Hafiz, an up-and-coming leader of Syria's Ba'ath Party.
The new president even considers
When Cohen tells him that he will soon be moving to Damascus, al-Hafiz eagerly gives the spy introductions to Syrian high society. Cohen's cover is trusted enough to be told of a Syrian plot to cripple Israel by cutting off its water supply. January 1962.
For Israel,
Cohen arrives in Damascus and rents an apartment directly across the street from Syrian army headquarters. He can keep an eye on the comings and goings of the military and report what he sees and hears back to Israel via radio.
Their headwaters are deep within the Golan Heights. Syria had developed an ingenious system of pumps and dams.
He reestablishes his lucrative import-export business. His money, lavish parties, and charm gain him easy access to Syria's elite. They do not suspect that hidden in his apartment are the tools that help make Eli Cohen, alias Kamel Tabet, a master spy. Disguised in the bottom of an electric mixer is his secret radio, connecting him to Israeli intelligence.
Visit his family.
Its antenna is the cord of an electric shaver.
It will be his last visit home. For a while,
Concealed in seemingly harmless bars of soap is plastic explosive. And innocent-looking aspirin are actually deadly poison. To kill himself, if necessary.
On his last visit, he had changed.
But the most important weapon in Eli Cohen's arsenal is his mind, his almost photographic memory, and his ability to grasp complicated ideas. Cohen carefully cultivates friends in the Syrian military.
His eyes were red.
Trusting Syrian Air Force pilots take him up on joyrides in airplanes and gliders. Army officers invite him along on trips to the Golan Heights.
Cohen is racked with stress and anxiety. He insists on going back to Syria one more time.
I understood that I had no choice.
There are no closed doors for Cohen.
But he
His
promised me
friends
that at the
proudly
end,
show off every hidden artillery emplacement, every camouflage trench and bunker, the location of every tank and gun.
I felt it was the last time we would see each
Cohen
other.
doesn't need to take notes. The superb memory
It was our
retains
separation.
everything. At this now abandoned Syrian hotel in the Golan, Cohen partied with his officer friends and listened carefully as they carelessly revealed state secrets.
He smuggles out microfilm, hidden in the furniture.
Crumbling walls and rusting lawn chairs are all that remain now. But here, Eli Cohen listened. Loose-lipped military men talked about the size and disposition of the Syrian armed forces. And he listened as they talked about the Syrian order of battle in the event of another war with Israel.
Within the span of 1 month.
March 1963.
With the help of Soviet military...
In the latest in a series of military coups, Cohen's old friend from Buenos Aires, General Amin el-Hafez, becomes the president of Syria. Israel now has a spy on the inside, privy to Syria's deepest secrets. The new president even considers making the Israeli spy the Syrian Minister of Defense.
To Israeli intelligence in Tel Aviv, revealing Syrian plans to help Cohen and Bank.
Cohen is trusted enough to be told of a Syrian plot to cripple Israel by cutting off its water supply. For Israel, a nation of deserts, water is more valuable than diamonds. It desperately needs water to survive. Water comes to Israel from the Sea of Galilee and the River Jordan. Their headwaters are deep within the Golan Heights. Syria had developed an ingenious system of pumps and dams designed to divert those waters, forcing the Israeli nation to die of thirst. Eli Cohen alerts Israeli intelligence to the Syrian plans. In November 1964, a series of Israeli bombing raids completely destroys the
I
fight.
saw his face.
Syria abandons its
And
scheme.
I became horrified.
At that same time, Cohen sneaks back into
I got
Israel
scared.
to visit his family. A rare
held me
moment
by
of
the
happiness.
shoulders.
It will be his last
Come.
visit home.
Sit down.
For a while,
Sit
he
on
can
the
stop
sofa.
being a spy and be
Eli
himself
has been
again.
captured.
He has never
Yes,
told
sir.
Nadia the
Syria?
true nature of his business,
And he
but
answered
she
yes.
suspects.
In the weeks following Cohen's
On his
arrest,
last
the
visit, he
Syrian
had
government
changed.
searches for more spies and accomplices.
He was
500
unusually tense.
citizens vanished from the streets of Damascus.
He was
Many
getting
never to be
upset
seen
over
again.
many meaningless incidents.
The Syrians forced Cohen to
His
transmit
eyes were
false
red.
information, but he alerts Israeli intelligence to the truth
He
by
even
a subtle
shouted at his
change in
sister,
the way he
saying,
presses his Morse
"Leave
code
me
key.
alone. My hands are on fire."
Cohen, beaten, tortured.
Cohen is racked with stress and anxiety, but he insists on going back to Syria one more time.
A vengeful Amin al-Hafez,
I understood
betrayed and
that I had no
fearful for the
choice.
future of his regime, ordered a military show trial.
But he promised me that it would end.
One more mission. Kamel Amin Sabet would then vanish, and Eli Cohen would come in from the cold.
Despite the protests
Nadia
of
was
world
afraid.
leaders, he is sentenced to death.
I felt it was the last time we would see each
May
other,
18th, 1965.
that it was our
Cohen is allowed to
separation.
write one last letter to his family. He writes it in French.
Cohen returns to Syria and becomes Kamel Sabet again. He resumes his transmission of radio messages to Israel and smuggles out microfilm, hidden in the furniture he exports to his customers in Europe.
Stayed together.
Everything has gone perfectly, but now things begin to go wrong. His secret transmissions are broadcast at exactly 0830 hours, sending too predictable. He sends 31 radio messages that exceed 9 minutes within the span of 1 month.
In the middle of the night, Cohen is taken to El Margo.
With the help of Soviet military advisors, radio detection vans prowl the streets of Damascus.
The executioner places a noose around Cohen's neck. He refuses the mask.
January 1965. From his apartment, Eli Cohen sends a vital message to Israeli intelligence in Tel Aviv, revealing Syrian plans to help train and bankroll the PLO.
His body dangles in the square.
He stays on the air for a full hour.
Wrapped around his corpse. Arabic detailing his crime.
Slowly, the detection vans zero in on him. As Cohen waits for a return signal from Israel, the front door crashes in.
2 years later, June 5th, 1960.
Colonel Ahmed Suadani, head of Syrian counterintelligence, places Cohen under arrest.
After months
Tel
of
Aviv.
increasing tension and an Arab blockade of the Gulf,
A representative of Israeli intelligence arrives at the Cohen's apartment in Bat Yam.
Jordan, and Syria.
I saw his face
It is
without a
known
smile,
as the Six-Day
and I
War.
became horrified.
Israeli jets attacked Syria's hidden gun
I got
emplacements in
scared.
the Golan. Troops and tanks stormed the heights.
He held me by the
They knocked
shoulders.
out all the artillery Syria thought
Come,
was so cleverly
sit down.
concealed.
Sit
All
on the
because of
sofa.
the pinpoint detailed
Ellie has
secret
been
information
captured. And I
smuggled out
said,
at the risk
Syria?
of death by Eli Cohen.
And he answered yes.
In the weeks following Cohen's arrest, the Syrian government
The
searches
Golan
for
Heights.
more spies and accomplices.
Ruined bunkers.
500 citizens
The
vanish from the streets of
Syrian
Damascus,
military
many
machine
never to be
once
seen
held
again.
Israeli settlers down below. For this moment in
The
history
Syrians
remains
force
in the
Cohen to
hands of
transmit
Israel.
false information, but he alerts Israeli intelligence to the truth by a subtle change in the way he presses his Morse code key.
The former source of
Cohen's
death
beaten,
and destruction
tortured,
is now a
but
site
never
for
breaks.
picnickers and tour groups, a living monument to the work of Eli Cohen.
A vengeful Amin el-Hafez, betrayed and fearful for the future of his regime,
Not far
orders a
from Tel
military
Aviv is
show
another
trial.
more formal monument, a monument to spies.
Cohen is denied counsel
Appropriately, it is
and
shaped
found
like a
guilty of
maze.
treason. Despite the protests of world leaders, he is sentenced to death.
On its smooth stone walls are the Hebrew
May
names,
18,
dates of death
1965.
of the more than 400
Cohen is allowed to
men and
write
women
one last
who have
letter
given
to
their
his family.
lives in the service
He
of
writes it in
Israeli
French,
intelligence.
wanting his last words to Nadia to be in the language of his
Eli
executioners.
Cohen,
My beloved
by the
Nadia,
death,
my beloved family,
1965.
I am writing these last words for you as will always stay together. I ask you not to mourn what happened, but to look to the future.
בשבוע הבא נשדר פרק בסדרה
I'm sending you
שלנו,
last
תוכנית
messages.
מצוינת, סדרה שרשת NBC מביאה
Faithful
פרק
soul.
וידאו גם בכל הזמנים.
In the middle of the night, Cohen is taken to El Marga Square in Damascus.
ולסיום שידורי רשת שלנו נביא בעוד דקות אחדות
The
פרק
rabbi of
בסדרה
Damascus
התחרות.
recites prayer, Shema Israel. The executioner places a noose around Cohen's neck. He refuses a mask. His body dangles in the square into the early morning light. Paper is wrapped around his corpse. Arabic detailing his crimes against Syria. Two years later, June 5th, 1967. After months of increasing tension and an Arab blockade of the Gulf of Aqaba, Israel launches lightning preemptive attacks on Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. It is known as the Six-Day War. Israeli jets attack Syria's hidden gun emplacements in the Golan. Troops and tanks storm the heights. They knock out all the artillery Syria thought was so cleverly concealed. All because of the pinpoint, detailed secret information smuggled out at the risk of death by Eli Cohen. The Golan Heights, the ruined bunkers, the wrecked remains of the Syrian military machine that once shelled Israeli settlers down below. So this moment in history remains in the hands of Israel. The former source of death and destruction is now a site for picnickers and tour groups, a living monument to the work of Eli Cohen. Not far from Tel Aviv is another more formal monument, a monument to spies. Appropriately, it is shaped like a maze. On its smooth stone walls are the Hebrew names and dates of death of the more than 400 men and women who have given their lives in the service of Israeli intelligence. Eli Cohen, date of death, May 18, 1965. He was 40 years old.